In this video, I'm going to share with you the 10 gifts of chronic pelvic pain. I'm also going to explain what you can do right now to start receiving some of these gifts. If you're a man or a woman suffering from chronic pelvic pain, pudendal neuralgia, non-bacterial prostatitis, or any of the mystery symptoms associated with CPPS, then this video is specifically for you. My name is Christian St. John. I spent nearly 3 years and over $50,000 to recover from chronic pelvic pain, so you don't have to. If you'd like to grab access to my free training on how I was able to recover, be sure to go ahead and do that down below. The 10 gifts of chronic pelvic pain that I'm about to reveal to you are some of the gifts that I uncovered during my healing journey. And these are the gifts that you can begin to enjoy right now if you're struggling with chronic pelvic pain. And if you stick with me until the end of this video, I'm going to share with you why most people fail to receive these gifts, as well as exactly what you can begin to do right now to make sure that this doesn't happen to you. So let's jump in. I knew that I just couldn't give up on it. Completely healed, completely changed, totally transformed, back at the gym, lifting weights, working out. Most importantly, I'm just living a normal life. You have to believe you can heal. Now, before we get into these gifts, I just want you to know that I truly understand what you're going through and I empathize with you. You see, not too long ago, I was there just like you, suffering with the most horrific chronic pelvic pain. In fact, I had about half a dozen symptoms for nearly 3 years. You can learn all about that on this page. But there's two main reasons why I'm sharing these gifts with you. Reason number one is it took me years to understand and accept these gifts. And I believe that if you begin to accept these gifts right now, you won't have to wait years like I did to heal. You can begin healing right away. The second reason is I understand how down and dark and depressing a life with chronic pelvic pain can be. So my hope is that by presenting you with some of these gifts here, you'll be able to see the struggle that you're going through in a different light. And I know that once you begin to accept these gifts into your life, things will begin to change for you. And you possibly may one day look at chronic pelvic pain as one of the best things that ever happened to you. So with that said, let's get into the gifts. Gift number one, the gift of presence. For as long as I can remember, I've always been thinking about being somewhere else. When I was in kindergarten, I used to always think about being in grade school. Then I got to grade school and I used to always think about high school. I need to get to high school and I can't wait to get to high school. Then I was in high school and I was always thinking, man, I want this to go faster because I cannot wait to be in college and to be in university. And then when I was in university, I was thinking, man, can't this go faster? I'm ready to go into the workforce. And while there's nothing wrong with thinking, or setting goals, or dreaming, it can be very detrimental when you're not living in the present. And for most of my life, I've been living somewhere else. Well, that all stopped when I came down with chronic pelvic pain. Chronic pelvic pain forced me to live in the present moment. And I truly believe one of the benefits of chronic pelvic pain was that it's a wake-up call. It was a wake-up call for me to say, you have to stop thinking this way. You have to stop living this way. And it was trying to get my attention, and it surely did. Now, I'm not perfect at this. I still struggle with this today, but I have to say, since coming down with chronic pelvic pain, I am now way more present. I am now way more in the moment. And I really love this gift that I received. So in your case, be sure to remain present. I know you just can't wait to heal and you're looking to the future and you're dying to heal, just like I was, but it's important that you remain as present as you can. You also need to understand that sometimes you need to slow down to speed up. This might be a time for you to just slow down, listen to your mind, listen to your body, and focus on healing. And remember, when it comes to your healing, slow is smooth, and smooth is fast. Nature does not hurry, yet everything is accomplished. If you believe that you will heal, and if you take the right actions consistently long enough over time, eventually you will heal. But you also need to understand that you cannot rush your healing. You cannot force your healing. You have to still remain present. You have to try not to live too much in the future or too much in the past. If you do that, this can create additional anxiety, which can cause even more pain for you. Accept the gift of presence. Gift number 2, the gift of self-care, protecting your energy. You know, there was a time many years ago in my younger days when I could just go full steam ahead on 4 hours of sleep. Sometimes I would have 4 hours or 4.5 hours of sleep. I would wake up early in the morning, drive to work in New York City, but I would not go to work first. I would first go to the gym and do an intense workout, weights, cardio, whatever it was, on 4.5 hours of sleep. Then I would go to work a full day in New York with a couple coffees, of course, and they weren't tiny coffees because, hey, it's Starbucks, so they're either grandes or ventis or whatever they are. And one wasn't enough because by the time the afternoon would come, I was crashing, of course, but that would be time for the second coffee to pick me up again. And I would power through and come home, and guess what? I would do it all over again the next day and the next day and the next day. And eventually I'd crash, hopefully just making it to the weekend. Well, those days are long gone. Chronic pelvic pain taught me that my energy is not infinite. CPPS taught me that my energy is finite. It woke me up. Now, when I was suffering with chronic pelvic pain, I barely had any energy to cook a meal. In fact, I was ordering meals that I can just reheat in the microwave, and I barely had energy to do that. So the experience of suffering through CPPS gave me the gift of protecting and preserving my energy. I now had to become focused on protecting the finite energy that I had. I now was putting boundaries around my energy because I only had enough energy to work, to microwave a meal, and then go to bed. So what I did was I began limiting energy drains. I came off social media for over a year. That was very helpful. Social media does nothing but steal your attention and steal your energy, and it can put you in a chronic anxiety state, which is no good if you're suffering from CPPS. I limited television. In fact, I didn't even have cable in my bedroom at the time. I limited and even restricted news or anything like that would steal my energy and put me in a negative state. And I was sure to protect myself and my time from energy vampires, from people, you know them, they're people that just suck the life, suck the energy out of you. It's all about them. And it was very important for me to set those boundaries in order to protect and preserve my energy. So what can you do to accept this gift right now? Start taking an inventory of how much energy do you have? Are you using it wisely? Or are you wasting it on things like social media, politics, dumb arguments on Facebook, or whatever it is, gossip with coworkers? When you're suffering with chronic pelvic pain, you do not have excess energy to spare. Stick to the essentials. Make sure that the vital energy that you have is just going to the most important priorities, such as your family, your work, and also healing from chronic pelvic pain, because that will take a lot of energy from you as well. And you should understand that healing from chronic pelvic pain is now somewhat of a part-time job for you. In fact, it might become a full-time job for you like it was for me. So know that it's okay to set boundaries. It's okay to put yourself first. Remember, you have to put on your own oxygen mask before you can help others with theirs. Gift number 3, the gift of letting things go. Forgiveness and learning to move on. You know, if there's anyone out there that could hold a grudge, it was me. I was the best at holding grudges. In fact, if there was a medal for holding grudges, I would have won that award. I'm in my 40s now, and I can still remember times where I was slighted, going all the way back to grade school. Things that happened when I was a child, things that maybe somebody said to me, things that someone did to me when I was 8 years old. Think about that. And we hold on to these things for decades, and we hold on to these grudges for life. And they develop tension in our body. Well, when I came down with chronic pelvic pain, I had to let go of all of that, and it was the greatest gift. Letting go of those grudges allows you to be free to heal, because again, your energy is finite. You don't have time to hold on to grudges. You don't have time to get into that. Your energy needs to be spent on healing. So it's important to understand that practicing forgiveness and moving on from these grudges, no matter how little or how big they are, can be very therapeutic and very healing for you. Is there someone out there that has slighted you in the past? Have you been holding on to something for years or even decades? maybe it's time to give them forgiveness. And on the contrary, have you done some things in the past to people that maybe you're not proud of? Have these things made you feel guilty? And have you been holding on to that guilt for years or decades? If so, maybe it's time to consider apologizing to them and asking for forgiveness. That could be very freeing as well. Whether they accept it or not, that's their decision. But just the act of you apologizing to someone about something that you did a while back that's maybe weighing on you can lift the burden off of you and can make you feel a lot lighter. Sometimes when we hold on to these things so tightly, it can create a lot of tension in our body, and these emotions can show up as chronic pelvic pain. So step into forgiveness. Don't be afraid to forgive people. Don't be afraid to ask for forgiveness. Try not to care as much. That was one of the biggest gifts I received from CPPS. I just didn't have the energy to care about these things anymore. I had to let them go, and that was a very freeing experience. Start caring less about these things that might be causing tension for you. And there's a great book out there by Mark Manson called The Subtle Art of Not Giving an F. I highly recommend that if you need some help with this. Gift number 4, the gift of acceptance. Learning to love yourself and learning to accept yourself exactly as you are. You know, for so many years, I struggled with body image. When I was younger, I used to be very overweight. That was something that was very difficult for me. I've also had many surgeries. I've had abdominal surgeries and hernias and all sorts of sports surgeries that have modified the way my body looks. And this is something that's made me self-conscious. I had to deal with losing my hair at the age of 20 and 21 years old as a senior in college. That was a very traumatic experience. So there are things that we go through in our lives that really affect us emotionally and can damage our body image. And then when you're dealing with chronic pelvic pain, this particular condition can bring a lot of shame. There can be shame around the sexual experience and how things work or don't work down there anymore. There could be shame around having pain in those private areas. There can be shame around not being able to perform either with your partner or even not even having the energy just to perform for your family or at work. So there's a lot of embarrassment, guilt, and shame, especially because chronic pelvic pain is a very sensitive area. So after a while and after suffering with chronic pelvic pain for years, I began to care less and less about all of these things that used to bother me because I just didn't have the energy for it. And I began to accept myself and love myself more and more. And eventually I got to the point where I just didn't care anymore what other people might think of me. It was just something that I was going through, and if they could not relate to that, that was fine, and that was their business. So I put all of my energy into healing, and I stopped caring what other people had to think about me and my situation. The reality is most people are so busy with their own lives that they really don't have the time to focus on what you're doing anyway, and most people don't really even understand what CPPS is. So I think oftentimes in our mind, we can make these situations worse than they are by always caring about what other people might think about me or how we might show up in society if we're suffering with CPPS. So what can you do to start receiving the gift of acceptance? Practice self-love by starting to take care of yourself. Accept that you're going through a momentary struggle in your life that eventually will resolve. It's important to know that you can accept the fact that you're struggling with chronic pelvic pain, while at the same time being sure to not make chronic pelvic pain your identity. That's the key. And as always, you want to practice being kinder to yourself. Practice giving yourself some grace. Don't beat yourself up over this. Remember, chronic pelvic pain is not your fault. It's not your fault. Gift number 5, the gift of independence. You know, it was after years of suffering with chronic pelvic pain and going to countless doctors and countless physical therapists, spending tens of thousands of dollars all over the world, that I finally realized if it was going to be, it's up to me. This gift of independence was one of the best gifts that I received. It was the day that I realized that no doctor, no physical therapist, no friend, no family member, no pill, no medication, no injection, no treatment halfway across the world was going to do it for me. Only I could do it. So if you're someone that's suffering with chronic pelvic pain for at least 3 to 6 months, and you've been to the doctors, you've been to the physical therapist, you have no known diagnosis, no structural disorder, no infection, no disease, it's time to take charge of your own healing, and it's time to reclaim your life. The best thing you can do in your situation is to start getting yourself around people that have actually healed. What most people do is they're on online forums day and night, and they're listening to other people that are suffering. This does nothing but make your situation worse. On the contrary, you want to get around someone that's actually recovered from chronic pelvic pain so you can learn from them to accelerate your healing. I recommend getting an accountability partner. Once you learn the steps that you need to take to heal, enroll a friend, a family member, a loved one to hold you accountable. This is someone that's going to make sure you're doing exactly what you need to do from a biopsychosocial approach to ensure that you're progressing in your healing. And this is exactly what we do at Pelvic Heal. We pair up our clients with accountability coaches to not only teach you the skills that you need to learn, but to make sure that you're actually implementing them. Because remember, it's not about information, it's about implementation of that information in order to move forward. Gift number 6, the gift of empathy. Wow, suffering from chronic pelvic pain can give you a whole lot of empathy. This is a major gift that I received and a major lesson that I learned. Now, I like to think that I've had a good amount of empathy in my life. I was raised by great parents, I had a fantastic education. I understand the value of being kind to others and being empathetic to others. Actually, for years, I worked in the medical industry for a clinic as a patient advocate. And this clinic had thousands of patients from all over the world that I had the chance to interact with on a first-hand basis. And these patients had all sorts of chronic pain conditions, and I got a chance to know them really well. So this also was able to develop my level of empathy. But I have to tell you, listening to patients that are suffering in chronic pain or getting to know someone that's suffering from chronic pelvic pain is one thing. But actually having chronic pelvic pain yourself, actually having the feeling of a knife being stuck in your hoo-ha for nearly 2 years straight, that's something completely different. That brings empathy to you to a completely new level. I would compare this to dealing with the doctor. When you deal with the doctor or physical therapist, of course they have empathy. They're great people, and I've had some great doctors and great physical therapists. But until they've actually had CPPS, until they've actually had that chronic pelvic pain, until they actually have experienced the horrific pain that you're going through, do they ever really know what you're going through? It's a completely different level. And this is why we believe that a coach that's actually been through chronic pelvic pain can be extremely valuable for you, even more valuable than doctors or physical therapists. Now, don't get me wrong, there's a place and a time for doctors and physical therapists, especially in the beginning. But again, if it's been 3 to 6 months with no known diagnosis, no infection, no structural disorder, no disease, it might be time to go about this in a different way. So how can you start receiving the gift of empathy? Well, I recommend beginning to focus more on others than yourself. Now, I know it's hard when you're suffering with chronic pelvic pain because your entire day can sometimes be consumed with pain. I get it. But the great thing about practicing empathy is if you can begin to put your focus on others and helping others and caring for others, it will begin to take your mind off of suffering. In fact, it might even start distracting your mind from the pain, and you might find that you may start to feel a little bit better as the days and the weeks go on. And remember, caring for others and doing for others may take off some of that pressure of you constantly being focused on your suffering. Gift number 7, the gift of gratitude and appreciation. You know, I get it. When I was suffering with horrific chronic pelvic pain, it was hard to be grateful. It was hard to appreciate things. When you have a knife pain in your penis for most of the day, or electric shocks through your urethra, or you can't even sit, and on and on and on, it's pretty tough to be grateful. But with that said, I cannot impress upon you how important it is for you to begin practicing gratitude now while you're suffering. You see, most people take the opposite approach. They think, when I get better, I'll be grateful. They think, when my pelvic pain is gone, I'll be joyous. When this is finally resolved, I'll be a friendly and happy person. It doesn't work that way. We have to first work on being the person that we want to become in order to accept the gift of gratitude and appreciation. So what can you do to start accepting this gift? I want you to think about, what can you be grateful for? Even though you're suffering, even though you're in pain, even though it's brutal for you, there has to be something that you can be grateful for. And I want you to focus on that day in and day out. Let's take the focus off of our pain and off of our healing, and let's put that focus on what we're grateful for, no matter how small it might be. Maybe it's that morning cup of coffee. Maybe it's just a 5-minute or 10-minute walk that you're able to do. Maybe it's a discussion that you have with loved ones, friends, or family. And I want you to think about all the things that you have in your life to be grateful for. Maybe it's that roof over your head. Maybe it's that loved one. Maybe it's that job that you have. Maybe it's those children that you love and the children that love you. What can you be grateful for? What can you focus on? And how can you shift the focus away from fear and pain and suffering towards gratitude and appreciation? And remember, no matter how bad it is, there's always something to be grateful for, and it could always be worse. I remember when I was suffering with the worst chronic pelvic pain, I used to reshift my focus and just be grateful that I could walk. I was grateful that I could see. I was grateful that I can move my body, even though I was in horrific pain. You have to realize some people are unable to do that. And when I worked in the medical field, we came across many patients that were paralyzed. And what stood out for me was their attitudes and how amazing many of the attitudes were of these paralyzed patients. Here they were, paralyzed, unable to walk for the rest of their lives, and many of these patients had the best attitudes. They were grateful. They appreciated things in their life. They loved their families. They smiled. And that really imparted on me that if patients that are paralyzed are grateful and have fantastic attitudes, there's no reason why I cannot be if I'm suffering from chronic pelvic pain. So I want you to think about that. What can you focus on that you can be grateful for? What can you focus on that you can appreciate? Whatever it is. Perhaps it's having a nice roof over your head. That's something to be grateful for. Start practicing gratitude now. And remember, no matter how bad it is for you right now, there's always something to be grateful for. Gift number 8, the gift of joy. You know, one of the worst parts of suffering with CPPS is that it sucks the life out of you and it steals the joy from you. I've always been a happy person. I've always loved to smile. I think most people that have known me know that I love to joke, love to laugh, love to smile. I'm just overall a pretty happy guy. That was until I was hit with CPPS. It stole the joy from my life and it took that smile off of my face. But it doesn't have to be that way. And eventually I realized this. I realized that whether I'm in pain or not, and whether the world knows that I'm in pain or not, I can still put a smile on my face. So I decided along my healing journey to just start smiling again. I was tired of frowning. I was tired of people seeing me down. I was tired of being known as the guy that was always suffering. So I said, even though that I'm in excruciating pain, and even though I don't even want to be outside interacting with people, I'm going to pretend that I do, and I'm going to put a smile on my face. And an interesting thing happened. I actually started to feel better. My pain didn't go away overnight. It doesn't work that way, but I started to feel better about myself. People started to respond to me differently. And even though I was suffering, I didn't have to show that. I could put on a happy face, fake it until I make it. So what can you do to start accepting the gift of joy and the gift of happiness? Start smiling. As hard as it is, start smiling. Don't allow chronic pelvic pain to steal the joy from your life. Fake it until you make it. When you're out in society, you're out in the world, put a smile on. When you get home, you can start crying again. There's nothing wrong with that. You can frown and be in pain and cry in the comfort of your own home, and sometimes it can feel good to get that out. But don't let it steal your joy. Pretend to be happy, even if you're not feeling happy in the moment, but eventually you'll be able to accept the gift of happiness and joy into your life again. Gift number 9, the gift of purpose and embarking upon a new life. You know, when I was suffering for years with CPPS, I would always think, why me? Why did this happen to me? Why did I receive this? There must be a reason, and I couldn't figure it out. But now I'm here to tell you that it's become my purpose to help you and to help others get out from chronic pelvic pain. So that biggest nightmare, my biggest mess, has become my message. And now I'm here to guide you through your mess. So if you're struggling with CPPS and you're going through a really tough time right now and you're wondering why me, or what is this meant to tell me, know that you might be going through this for a specific reason. There might be something that you're going to learn from this that might change the direction of your life for the better. And many people have these stories where they go through really tough times in their lives, mentally, physically, experiences of loss, and it changes the direction of their life and puts them on a new path, and it can sometimes give them a brand new purpose and a new vigor and a new lease on life. So be open to that. Gift number 10, and perhaps the most important gift of all, the gift of health. You know, I remember when I was suffering with chronic pelvic pain, scrolling through my Instagram and my Facebook feed, seeing all of these people traveling, doing these amazing things, having these amazing experiences all over the world, accomplishing great things in their life. And I used to think, yeah, well, it's easy for you to do because you're healthy. You know, there's an old saying that goes, a healthy man wants 1,000 things, a sick man only wants one. And that could not be truer than ever. When I was suffering with chronic pelvic pain, the only thing that I wanted in my life was to become free from pain. In fact, I remember telling my mom, I would give away all of my money, all of my toys, anything that I ever wanted, I would give it all away just to get rid of this pain. And it's true. I know you can relate to this because the only thing we want to do when we're suffering with this horrific pain is to get out of pain. That's it. It is the most important thing to us. So now that I've recovered from chronic pelvic pain, I can tell you that I cherish and prioritize my health way more now than I ever did before. I was always healthy in the past, but now it is the highest priority of my life to protect and preserve my health so I can live the best possible life free from pelvic pain. Begin eating the right foods, begin getting on the right diet, begin understand the right movement patterns and understand the right stretches and the right physical therapy that you can do at home to strip the tension out of the biggest muscles of your body, the muscles that can put tension on the pelvic floor. Begin to understand what some of your trigger foods and trigger beverages can be that can exacerbate your pelvic pain. The great news is that our team can help you with all of this, ensuring that you stay on track and holding you accountable through the process. So now that I've revealed the 10 gifts of CPPS, it should be pretty easy for most people to heal, right? Unfortunately, that's not the case. I'm now about to reveal why most people fail to heal from chronic pelvic pain, even if they understand what these gifts are. So what we found, unfortunately, is that even if people hear or understand what these gifts are, most people fail to heal from chronic pelvic pain because they're just not willing to believe or accept these gifts. Many people, unfortunately, are just so beaten down by the pain and the suffering that they've become very negative, and they're not open-minded to accepting these gifts. A lot of times people are just on forums day in, day out, listening to everyone else who's suffering, listening to everyone else who's in severe pain. Some people are in excruciating pain, and it's just making the situation worse for them. So they don't have any space to accept these gifts into their life if everything around them is just suffering, and they don't have any positive influences to show them what it's like on the other side. So what can you do to accept this gift right now? Well, it's simple. Don't wait to be free from pelvic pain to start prioritizing your health. Begin doing that now. Be present to receive the gift of presence. Protect your energy to receive the gift of self-care. Start letting things go to receive the gift of forgiveness. Start loving yourself to receive the gift of acceptance. Start realizing that healing is up to you to receive the gift of independence. Start focusing more on others to receive the gift of empathy. Start being thankful for what you have, no matter how small, to receive the gift of gratitude. Start smiling more, even if you don't feel like it, to receive the gift of joy. Develop a compelling vision for your future to receive the gift of purpose. Start prioritizing your health and healing to receive the gift of health and healing now. You see, the secret is you don't have to wait to heal from chronic pelvic pain to receive these gifts. You can begin receiving these gifts right now. All you need to do is decide to receive these gifts and let the healing begin now. We can help you with this. Well, I truly hope that you found this video valuable. Please be sure to like and subscribe to continue to receive more videos like this down the road. And if you'd like to hear more about my story and everything that I did to recover from chronic pelvic pain, be sure to go ahead and click on the video that's coming up on the screen right now.